If you've been scrolling through endless lists of plasma cutters, watching video after video, trying to figure out whether you need a full-size benchtop or something you can sling over your shoulder, you're not alone. I've been there, staring at spec sheets and wondering if the extra portability is really worth the trade-offs. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review, I'm going to break down exactly what the Lincoln Tomahawk 30 Air handheld does in a real workshop on a construction site, and why that matters before you click Add to Cart. First off, the biggest claim for the Tomahawk 30 Air is its internal air compressor. Most plasma cutters need a separate, bulky air source, which means you either have to run a hose to a shop floor compressor or lug a second unit around. The Tomahawk packs its own compressor inside the housing, so you can walk up to a piece of sheet metal on a job site, plug the cutter into a standard 120V outlet, and start cutting without any extra gear. That level of ultimate portability is a game changer for anyone who does field repairs. Think HVAC technicians who need to trim ductwork, metal roofing crews adjusting flashing, or small shop fabricators that move between job cars. The convenience factor alone saves you a few minutes per cut, and those minutes add up when you're on the road all day. What really separates the Tomahawk from a basic handheld is how it handles the arc once you've got it started. The touch start system eliminates the high-frequency spark that some cheaper cutters use, which can be a safety hazard around sensitive electronics or flammable gases. Instead, you simply tap the trigger and the machine ignites the plasma. In practice, I found that it makes the first cut feel smoother. There's no flickering as the arc stabilizes, which means you can get a clean edge on the first pass. For a contractor who is cutting conduit or making a quick repair, that reliability can reduce rework. The continuous output control is another practical feature. The front panel lets you dial the airflow rate manually, so you can fine-tune the cutter for thin-gauge steel versus thicker plate. In my testing, dialing down the airflow for a 12-gauge sheet gave a narrower kerf and less heat distortion, which is exactly what you want when you're trying to fit a custom bracket. Conversely, cranking the airflow up on an inch plate let the cutter bite through without bogging down. That kind of on-the-fly adjustment isn't something you get on every handheld, and it's especially useful when you're dealing with mixed material jobs where you can't pre-plan the settings for each piece. One of the hidden trade-offs of having an internal compressor is the duty cycle. The Tomahawk can run continuously for about 10 minutes before it needs a short cool-down period, which is fine for most small job scenarios, but could become a bottleneck if you're slicing through large sheets all afternoon. Larger, mains-powered units can run for an hour or more straight through because their compressors are built for industrial duty. If your daily workflow involves cutting dozens of inch plates, you'll probably feel the need to pause and let the machine rest more often than you'd like. Durability is another angle worth mentioning. The swirling airflow design that Lincoln markets as a cool operation, long consumable life, really does keep the torch head from overheating during those rapid arc restrikes. When the cutter encounters a gap, say, a broken seam in expanded metal, the rapid arc restrike function kicks in and reestablishes the plasma within a fraction of a second. In field use, that translates to not having to backtrack and manually reignite the cutter, which can be a safety risk if you're working at height or in a cramped space. The consumables electrodes and nozzle last noticeably longer than on some entry-level models I've used, meaning you won't be swapping them out after every few cuts. So who should actually buy the Tomahawk 30 Air? If you're a mobile professional HVAC, plumbing, sheet metal trades, or a small shop owner who needs to travel between job sites, this cutter hits the sweet spot of power and portability. It's also a solid choice for hobbyists who already have a decent workshop but want the freedom to take the cutter to a garage or a friend's barn without hauling a separate compressor. The price point sits comfortably between the cheap, low-amp handhelds that struggle with anything thicker than 14-gauge and the heavy-duty benchtops that lock you into a fixed location. On the flip side, you might want to skip this model if you run a full-scale fabrication shop where you're cutting thick plate all day, or if you need a cutter that can run for an hour straight without a cool-down. In those environments, a larger unit with a dedicated air supply and a higher duty cycle will pay for itself in productivity. Also, if you're on an ultra-tight budget and only need to make occasional cuts on thin sheet, a basic, lower amperage handheld could shave a few $100s off your spend without hurting your workflow. In terms of value, the Tomahawk's everything in